Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of our uh, I'm not quite sure what to call these, our 5 episodes leading up to our event for the 14th of June. And doing this, we've had a lot of different technical issues coming up. And so one of my technical issues is I've had about 2 hours sleep, and I'm a bit punchy on that. Um, but I want to talk to you about our this series, and I also want to talk to you about uh, the event on the 14th of June. And I see that Angie is using the link I unfortunately put into the flyer, which, if you actually go and use the YouTube link that's on that flyer, that will get you on board, but it will get you on board in such a way that you're not actually in my studio. Um, and off she goes. Um, So I'm seeing I've got one person watching, and I guess that's going to be Angie. So I want to give you an overview of why I'm doing this, and then talk a little bit about what we're doing, and call it a night for this series. Um, the notion of how do we get to a new society? How do we get to a um, a society where we are um, living on an earth that is healed and healing, and that we as humanity and all other species are healed and healing. I said something in my book, The Chronicles of the Upheavals, for those of you who read it. And I guess if you haven't read it, the book is set 100 years in the future. And 100 years in the future, humanity, makes it. We make it from all the stuff that is going on right now and will be going on in our future. But there's a toll that we pay for making it. And in the book, half of humanity dies. So 4 billion human beings in the book die. And people who've read that have said, "Oh, Sharif, that's really dark. It's really depressing. Why did you make so many people have to die?" And it's like, I didn't write that. I received the book, and the thing I received was the parts that I received were pretty much as it was given to me. And unfortunately, we are on course for a major, major correction. One of the things that my Native American friends have been saying, my Native friends around the world have been saying, is that the earth is undergoing a correction, and we are going to get corrected with it. I remember a movie I saw some time ago. I can't remember the title. I can't remember the actors. Only I can remember it was a John Ford movie, and part of the movie was set kind of in the Florida Everglades, and a hurricane came through, and there were a lot of native people living around. And during the hurricane, their tents blew over, their teepees blew over, so they just picked them back up again and set them back up, and dried out their clothes, and they kind of kept going. Um, when a hurricane comes our way, it's game over for most of us and how we've been living. Our houses are destroyed. Um, if you look at a scene where a tornado has been through a town, it looks like a pile of garbage, and you basically have to scoop it all up and take it to a landfill because it's all trash. We don't seem to know how to live with the earth. The earth is, and what the native people are saying, what the keepers of the world are saying, is that we're going to find out the hard way. The thing that's been coming back to me over and over again, as all of us know we're going through an upheaval of some kind. All of us have a strategy of how we're going to survive that. Most of our strategies are what I call hope for the best. Um, don't make any movements, don't make any changes, don't do anything, just cross your fingers and hope for the best. And that's not going to work. Um, many of us, especially those of us who have means, have individual strategies. You buy a piece of land somewhere in a country that you can get to in difficult times. You have, your capital is in gold or bitcoins or something or another. Um, you've got generators and you've got all these other things going on, and that won't work either. There's only one strategy that's going to get us through this, and that strategy is we all get through it, not an individual strategy of I'm going to get through it and wish the best for you, but you're not my problem. We together will get through it, and we together, not just not just in the sense of us getting our bodies through it, or having food enough for each other and maybe set up some soup kitchen somewhere or another. But we need to get through it as a whole, as a connected body, as we. And once we get through it, we can start doing some things that are, I think, relatively interesting. How do we? So, those of us who have been part of our holonic consciousness meditations, our catalyst meditations in the mornings, or on Thursdays, we've been talking about how do all beings link their consciousness in such a way that we can float literally above whatever the tragedies that are facing us. How do we activate creating a world that works for all? How do we actually make that happen? How do we understand what our role is regarding creating a world that works for all living beings? I want to share something with you. Oh, well, first of all, I want to share with you where we're going over the next few days. And I want to share I have this on a slide, so I'm going to see if I can make the slide work here. And I think this is actually working, going to work. Um, so we're in episode 1 right now, freeing ourselves from our shackles. Then the next one tomorrow, the economics of happiness and the economics of misery. Um, the third episode, which will be Wednesday, looking at the fantasy of going to a barren Mars versus creating the vision of living on a beautiful Earth. Which one of us, which one of those pictures do we want to invest our time in? It's perfectly okay for Elon Musk to invest in that or almost anything else. It's his money. Um, when it comes to us spending our money, our energy, our time, there should be a very different way of looking at vision. Number 4, that's going to be Thursday, is looking at our juxtaposition. We're going to be living in a world for all, or we're going to be living in a world for none. Um, the world of the elitists won't even work for the elitists. So again, this is something that we will be facing. And then the last episode on Friday is the alternative to Armageddon. What is our alternative now? So I want to talk about the notion of losing our shackles, but I want to talk to you about that from the point of view of you. What's your job in this new society that we're creating? What's your job in the in this world for all? And to think about that in the broadest sense of the term. And I'm thinking about sneezing in the broadest sense of the term. So we will. I'll continue to talk until I get overcome with some other energy here, and then I'll do something else. And I'm thinking that it's passing now. As soon as you call it forward, you get to look at things a different way. So what I want to do now is share a different set of slides with you. And you remember I put on a lot of these live streams. I knew where all the buttons were, and I was able to push them when I wanted to. And now I'm forgetting where all my buttons are. I've lost my buttons. This is something which I find really interesting. These are 3 views of Václav Havel. This is when he was in a Soviet prison waiting to be transferred from one place to another, and a journalist actually snapped a picture of him. This is him after he was let out of prison, and he's talking to 1 million people gathered in Wenceslas Square. And if you've ever been to Prague, you know Wenceslas Square goes on for blocks and blocks and blocks. And so this is a very different image of Havel that was waiting for Havel, as opposed to him in his stripes. And then this is a great day for at least for me, and I would like to think for both of us, when I had an opportunity to meet with him as a delegate to Forum 2000. I want to show you this picture, though, for this reason. When he was sitting here as a prisoner of the Soviet Union, second largest superpower on earth, he had been imprisoned by them 3 or 4 times. And this was in the middle of the longest stretch for him, which was 4 years. What was going through his mind? What was he thinking about right then? I don't know. But I'd be willing to bet you that he wasn't thinking about becoming the president of the entire country. Even when he was on the balcony, he thought he was supporting somebody who would be the president of the entire country. And so this was a very powerful moment, and a very powerful thought for us right now. We are not prisoners of the state. We are technically free actors. And we've got a broader range of activity than what Pavel had when he's wearing his striped uniform there. And I want to remind us of another prisoner. And why don't we want to advance here? So this, oops. The picture on the right is Nelson Mandela looking through the bars of his prison in Robben Island, where he was for 27 years. And the picture on the left was the day when he left the prison as one of the most popular men on earth. I mean, the Nelson Mandela was freed was literally the headlines of every newspaper on earth. Now, when he's looking out the bars of the prison, and I don't have any illusions about this. I am sure that a journalist or a photojournalist was allowed into the prison and said, "Can you stand there and can you look out and can you look pensive?" Okay. But when he stood there day after day, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, what was he thinking? Was he thinking, oh, I've only got 7 more years of this, and then I become president of the whole country? I'm betting that he did not think that. They were not thinking that. So the first time I went to Prague, I tried to see Nelson Mandela. It's really hard to see Nelson Mandela from Prague. I tried to see Václav Havel. Went to the castle. He had said that he would be able to see me, and they ran into a crisis. And so I wound up outside their cabinet room for a few hours waiting for the crisis to get over, and the crisis never got over. And it's a very a mundane problem that did not have a solution. Um, they had no money. The Soviet Union had been subsidizing them and a whole bunch of other countries. So when the Soviet Union had the problem, when they disappeared, um, a lot of countries went down the tubes. Cuba, North Korea, you name them, they were all suffering. The people who became the new government were saying to the Soviets, "Well, there's no money in the treasury," and the Soviets said, "Hey, that's your problem now. You wanted to be independent, you got it. There you go." And so they had a choice to make, and the choice they had was the choice they had was take what little money they have and continue to subsidize the price of bread and go bankrupt. Nobody was helping them. The United States gave them absolutely nothing. The United States generally doesn't give other countries anything except weapons. Um, so what they should have done is said, "Can you give us a bunch of tanks and weapons and jets, etc., and then sell all those to the Soviet Union so they could get some bread." Um, but so they could have gone the route of spend what little money they have, continue to subsidize the price of food, or let the price of food rise to the market levels, and literally have riots in the street from people who can't afford to buy food, and then face having to send your own army out to shoot your own people. That's a choice. Now, up until the time that they had to face that choice, there was nothing, not one thing in their previous experience to prepare them for making a choice like that. This was a bunch of, Havel was a playwright. There were people who were journalists, a few sculptors, and no one had experience in making those kinds of real world choices, the difficult choices that they would have to make in the society. Turned out they made the right decision. They let the price go up some. They took what little money they had in the treasury and bought it down some. And people were grumbling and protesting, but they weren't rioting in the streets. And then they went on to the next um, uh, crisis, the next challenge, the next what the heck do you do now? For the last 30 or 40 years, I have been trying to get people to prepare for that moment in this country. As we have been looking at approaching this issue um, of how we create a new society. What are the choices that we get to make? I've had people kind of come into Common Way and then kind of go out of Common Way. And a lot of the people who came in and left, the reason that they were quite honest with it, they said, this is too hard. It's too hard to think about. It's literally too hard to think about. I'm going to go to somebody else's lecture because they have happier news. They don't force us to look at these kinds of choices. And when at the point in time comes when they have to look at these kinds of choices, They won't be able to. They won't have a mechanism for looking at the choices. Um, they won't have a mechanism for um, how um, to see their way forward. I'm hoping that enough of us come together and be serious about doing um, the kind of training that an athlete trains for. Um, I had a YouTube video I was just looking at about this woman who was playing one of my favorite pieces of of music by J.S. Bach and the cantata and fugue, and she had this organ that was so big she had to have an assistant pulling stops for her. I mean, like she had took two people to play this organ, and um, she didn't just walk up to it with some sheet music and say, "Let me see if I can do this." She trained and trained and trained and trained to get to the point where her fingers could move themselves. And the two of them trained and trained so that when he pulled out one of these hundreds of stops that are all over her organ, he pulled out the right one and knew when to push it back in again. Um, and so our challenge is, how do we learn how to live in a new society? How do we practice governing ourselves? How do we practice governing each other? How do we let go of all the things that hold us back? Now, in the case of Václav Havel, in the case of Nelson Mandela, it was obvious who was holding them back. The people that stuck them in that cell, the people that made him wear that funny outfit, they were clearly at odds with his best intentions and his best interests. By and large, we don't have those people in our society. The people who we have who are operating at our not in our best interest are ourselves. We get to suffer. We get to be oppressed by ourselves. We look at other people. We look and if we start naming names, we know a lot of the names that we get to talk about. I'm not going to call any here, but they're not really the ones that are oppressing us. It's us. It's our refusal to let go of something that is inadequate and doesn't work anymore. Our clinging to ways of thinking about the world that are not good for us and not good for each other and not good for any of the beings on the planet. And we get to make a choice. Now, for the last 30 or 40 years, the choice has been really clear. While our economy was working, we could say, let's start designing a whole new economy so that as one declines, the other one can come up. Well, we didn't do that. So we'll have some dislocations that are not good. But right now, because we don't live in Haiti style conditions where you are afraid to literally walk down the street um, where money doesn't work anymore, we still can do something. And what I want to do is start showing us some of the things that we can do. Okay, so I am, I said half an hour, so this is half an hour. I also said we are going to have a chance to do a little bit of informal discussion. I'm seeing that there's like maybe 5 or 6 people on the call here today. If you have something you want to say, you can put it in the chat. Some chats I get and some chats I don't. Which I don't. I tend not to get Facebook chats, and I don't know why. On really good days, I will have a separate window open for Facebook, and I can then see chats that show up there. I may be able to pull that together here. Hang on for a second. And if not, I'm not getting it. And I don't see any comments going in. So it looks as though the 4, 5, 6 or so people are not being verbal right now. And if that continues on for a while, I'm going to wrap this up, and we will go till tomorrow. And tomorrow, and I'm going to go to. I'm going to remind us of our episodes here. Okay. So our episodes for tomorrow is the economics of happiness and the economics of misery. The economics of happiness is both a book, actually 2 books and a movie. And the economics of misery is just what we've been doing. So I've got a couple of questions, and I think I can put these on the screen. And this is from Jenna, who says, what is the method for even starting a seed group to discuss and plan? And that's a really good question. And I've been trying to answer that for 30 or 40 years. I get a good group of people to come out, let's say 40 or 50 people, and I'll do a presentation, and there'll be questions and comments, etc. And then I'll say, okay, let's get together in a few weeks or in next month and continue the conversation. And a different set of people show up, and they are still in the old framework of like, let's blame the people who are running us for the problem, and aren't they all just a bunch of jerks, and then I have to go through that whole process again and again. So I've got a good number of people who have gone through first grade, and I've got another number of people, a much smaller number of people who have gone through second grade, and we haven't gotten very many people who have gone through grad school, and that has to change. I'm going to say something here. Partly that's been true, partly because I was willing to do that. I was willing, oh, nobody else is talking, I'll talk. I'll be glad to do it. Let's continue on. It's not that I'm not willing to do that anymore, but I'm looking at the calendar and realizing I don't have the energy, the time, the focus that I had 30 or 40 years ago. It takes a lot more out of me to get to those points. So I've got to start acting as though me as a resource is finite. This is an experiment. This live stream, the next 5 days, is an experiment. We are starting off with, again, I'm counting heads here. I have to count across on multiple platforms. Facebook isn't reporting anything. We could have 200 people on Facebook and I don't see them. LinkedIn is reporting either one or an exclamation point, and I don't know what that means. We've got some people on YouTube. Got one person live, and if by the end of the week we've got 40 or 50 people who are committed to being here, I'll be committed to being here. If by the end of the week we've got 7 people or 8 people, I'll do something else. I'm always trying to move forward, and that won't be a way that moves me forward. Jenna has another question or a comment. This is vast. Do we have a methodology for what to approach first? I've got 2 or 3 methodologies, and we will use them after Saturday the 14th. One of them is to really focus in on the 5 latent powers that we've talked about before. We'll talk about a little bit here, and to look at that as something that can help bring people together. Another one is the 12 global challenges, to go through each one of the challenges and start thinking about local solutions to the challenge of food, local solutions to the challenge of water, local solutions to the challenge of energy or healthcare or whatever. All of these things, and the 12 global challenges are free of left-right ideological nonsense. Everybody likes clean water. If you can find someone that says, I want to give my children dirty, toxic water, I think it's going to be good for them, build some character. Let me know. I want to find that person. I'd like to have a little talk with them. Okay. But generally, people like fresh air and sunshine. People like having adequate health care for themselves and their families. Healthcare becomes a problem in this country because it has so little to do with health and it has so much to do with money. But if we can get the issues distilled down, we will come into unanimity of agreement in terms of how to deal with these situations. So our challenge is for us to do that. How do we come into into balance? And as Jenna points out, how do we have a methodology for doing that? So the notion is, once we start getting the discussions going, by word of mouth alone, people will say, I want to be part of that discussion, or I want to find out what this is about. I want to find out what you folks over there are talking about. And it's kind of how our catalyst meditation itself expands. Somebody tells somebody else, and a number of people who are dealing with the catalyst meditation are coming back into Common Way after, 4 or 5 years, after 10 years, after 20 years in some cases, and saying, yeah, okay, now I'm ready to do this. Okay, I'm not seeing any new questions or comments going into my box. I'm going to try to get into Facebook again, and Facebook is doing its regular pissing me off so I'm going to ignore them. So if you have, once we get off of this, I will be able to go into YouTube and then go into Facebook and see if there are any questions. And if you've put any in there, I will do my best to try to respond to them. I'll try to have a better way of looking for questions set up for tomorrow. This is so, the StreamYard, they have a technical issue. I'm living in the middle of the technical issue right now. What I want to do is have this all operate a lot smoother tomorrow when we deal with the question of what our economy looks like. Will we continue the economics of misery, or will we go into the economics of happiness, the economics of love, the economics of ecstasy, and the economics of our spiritual destiny? Okay, going once, going twice for our questions here. I'm not seeing any. I got this big red button over there that says end the live stream. I'm about to push it. Thank you so much for attending our number 1 of our 5 episodes this week. They'll get better. And look forward to connecting with you tomorrow, same time, if you're available. Thank you. Blessings. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.